Matthew Whitaker, ambassador to NATO, previously served as acting Attorney General of the United States from 2018, 2019, following his tenure as Chief of Staff to Attorney General Jeff Sessions. So, obviously, Ambassador, it's great to have you with us. We don't really know exactly who's calling the shots here. We see the Strait of Hormuz definitely impacted, but there's just a message being read on Iranian state TV saying this is the supreme leader. We're curious your take, and I want to know, obviously there's a vacuum of power. There's words that they are having some defections. And again, back here, a lot of people are looking at this, looking at the impact domestically. But militarily, it does seem like there could be a real break that we could be hearing about in the next few days with the massive success, but also the complete and utter confusion of the IRGC.
Yeah, and what you're going to see, I think, Bianca, to predict the future a little bit, is you're going to see the military changes on the ground ultimately will take the pressure off the Straits of Hormuz and will take the pressure off of oil prices. And, President Trump's bold decision to no longer tolerate an aggressive and hostile Iran that was pursuing not only a ballistic missile program at scale, but also a nuclear weapon program. His action and the brave work of our men and women of our military have really executed something phenomenal. 6,000 strikes, dramatic impact, and I think it's going to change the history of the world for the better. And that is not an overstatement. I think taking an Iran that over the last 50 years approximately has menaced the region and the world, including firing missiles as part of this last 12 days at a NATO country in Turkey. Yeah. I think that is where you see President Trump's decision to no longer tolerate Iran and their provocation of the region, I think, is ultimately going to be historical and wildly successful.
And then you get Russia, Ambassador. Let's talk about this. So Volodymyr Zelensky believes that Russia could be, really getting into this a bit bigger, saying Russia started supporting the Iranian regime with drones, definitely help with the missiles, he writes, helping them with air defense. What's next, he says, when and which country will be the first to support the Iranian regime by sending troops. I'm not sure that Russia plans to do that. In fact, Witkoff, the special envoy, said Russia denied sharing any intelligence. And then yesterday in Florida, you had the Kremlin envoy Kirill Dmitriev meeting with U.S. representatives to discuss economic cooperations between Russia and the United States. So which is it? Are they on the United States side? Obviously, are they on the Iranian side? And how do you think the relationship with Putin and President Trump, which is obviously very complex, plays out as we seek to finish off the job and the objectives in Iran? Yeah,
there are no indications that the Russians are supporting Iran in their ultimate destruction. But, if they are, they're not helping them. You see what's happened over the last 12 days. The United States is purely dominating Iran right now militarily and has diminished their capabilities to almost zero, and an inability to ultimately project their menacing power, I think, is good for the world. Now, obviously, I saw what Steve Witkoff said about the Russians and the fact that they denied it, and he, says that he took their word for it. We are watching carefully, but right now there's also a hot war, as you know. We've talked many times in Ukraine that the Russians are prosecuting, and so I think just like when President Putin offered help somewhere else in the globe, President Trump said, I want your help solving this Russia-Ukraine war. I think that's still where we're at. We need Vladimir Putin to come to the table and negotiate an enduring peace in Ukraine.
Ambassador Matthew Whitaker, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Come back and see us soon.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.